We continued to live in this homeless shelter for several years. And to be honest, I started to become my environment. That was just a seed that was planted. I started to become my environment, becoming negative and failing every grade in school. And I have to share this second part because this, I feel, was the greatest trajectory of change for me. And it happened really young, and I'm grateful for this. And I'm coming home from school, coming to the homeless shelter, which we now call this home. And my mother's standing at the head of the homeless shelter, and she's not looking happy. And I get in front of her and she says, "Leah, do you want to be a follower or a leader? Because right now you're following, and guess what? You're going to become everything you see. All this negativity, you're becoming it right now. Or, Leah, you get the chance to choose. There's a divine whisper. There's an inner light. There's a destiny inside of you. And all you have to do is choose to lead your life towards your destiny."
Leah, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. My soul is in alignment with everything we're standing for today. So thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's super fun to have a conversation with people who have really lived life. So, I often talk about living life with freedom, and it's very difficult to describe this to people. When you share your life, you went from homeless to business leader.
Yes.
Walk us through what it was like to change that mindset. What switch flipped to change your trajectory? Because it had to be impactful, and that is where we should start.
Thank you. Oh, well, you shared with me as we opened about life, the acronym for life: love, impact, faith, and energy. I can remember it so quickly because if you ask me what was the transition to go from homeless to shattering glass ceilings, it was the life acronym. First understanding, well, I must give homage to my mother because she was the one. I say that she was paralyzed by fear and by society stereotypes. So she physically couldn't break through, but her mind knew truth, and it knew what was true. And she would try to speak this into her children's life. So the moment we landed in the homeless shelter was my mother broke her leg in multiple places, single mother, 3 children. And one day she's getting us home from school and there's a padlock on the door. And that means a mother with 3 children has no place to take her 3 children, and all of their belongings are locked inside of this place that we once called home. That immediately sent us to a woman's homeless shelter. And I always paint this first day picture because I block out a lot of trauma. That's one of my coping mechanisms. But I remember this day so vividly because it was a seed that was planted of that life acronym in my life. We land in the homeless shelter. I paint the homeless shelter picture so you can experience it with me. A big gym room, if you think of that, and there's cots. And if anyone knows what a cot is, they're these hard metal foldable beds that aren't really big, and they're 1 foot apart, filling the gym. And so each mother gets 1 cot to an entire family. And if you can imagine a mother with 3 children, and we're stair-stepped in age, I'm the youngest, but we have 4 bodies balled up on a metal cot. There's hopelessness, there's crying and sorrow, profanity filling the room. I remember that so clearly. But here's where love steps in, because in the midst of that darkness, my mother looks down at us, her 3 children, and she says, "Your predicament does not determine your destiny." And I felt, now at that time I was young. I was about age 8. So it was a seed that was planted, but it was planting love in my heart that I understood, because what she was saying to us, that this is not the end. And that we continue to live in this homeless shelter for several years. And to be honest, I start to become my environment. That was just a seed that was planted, but it didn't grow immediately. I started to become my environment, becoming negative and failing every grade in school. And I have to share the second part because this I feel was the greatest trajectory of change for me. And it happened really young, and I'm grateful for this. I'm probably now in seventh grade, and I'm coming home from school, coming to the homeless shelter, which we now call this home, and my mother's standing at the head of the homeless shelter, and she's not looking happy. And I get in front of her, and she says, "Leah, do you want to be a follower or a leader?" And I didn't understand that, but she said, because right now you're following, and guess what? You're going to become everything you see. All this negativity, you're becoming it right now. Or, Leah, you get the chance to choose. There's a divine whisper, there's an inner light, there's a destiny inside of you. And all you have to do is choose to lead your life towards your destiny. And she walked away and left me with the power of choice. And that for me was the change of life for me because I was exposed to that we do have the power to choose. Up until that point, I thought everything was given, like everything that happened was for me. And that changed my mindset to understand that there is a divinely whisper. And I love the F part of the life acronym, faith, because God will whisper your truth to you. And it 9 times out of 10 looks opposite of what's going on outside of you. But you have the choice to decide, do I love myself enough and do I understand the love of God enough to listen to something that is unseen? And I chose that and immediately went back to school and asked for help, asked to see something beyond what I was seeing in my environment. How do I get better grades? And I use that strategy throughout my life now. I choose to love myself abundantly. I choose to love others fully. And I choose to ask so many questions of how do I do this? How do I learn that? Or watch life from an outside perspective to know where I'm going. And then E for that energy is 1000%. Like, really, what happens is I decide that no matter what, like when I'm failing, when my business is in struggle, how am I going to show up? Am I going to show up in sorrow and negativity and anger? Or am I going to show up and say, okay, well, what's the different way? How do we do something different? Okay, well, what's the next step? Okay, we failed here. I'm going to cry because I am a crier. I probably cry through this podcast. But then I get back up and say, all right, but what's the joy in it? How do we find the goodness in it? What can we learn from it? And that just keeps moving me from glory to glory, truthfully.
That power of the curiosity right there. It's the power of the curiosity of wondering why we failed at something, what we could do differently, how we can learn. I had a conversation with someone today, and I said, you keep talking to me about what you know, and you're nodding your head, and but if we want to take this from knowledge to wisdom, there has to be some action in between.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that what we know we have to actually act upon. And so failure means that we're acting, that we're moving, that we're challenging ourselves to something that's different, and we've hit a wall, and
Yeah.
that's okay. That means that we've learned from it. But I'm with you, and I think that's that entrepreneur spirit. And one of the things that I'm interested in is when you were younger and you saw this poverty, did you start out by feeling like there had to be a better way? Because I feel like growing up, and again, I was not in a homeless shelter, but there were definitely moments where I felt like something could be better, that our situation could be better. I think back to my dad riding his bike to and from work. It's 100 degrees outside. He's in his work uniform. And I'm walking and I'm just asking questions like, when are we going to have a car? When's the car going to, like, I can't understand. I'm leaving the babysitters, and I can still remember this conversation. And I remember frustration coming upon his face. Like, don't you think that if I thought I knew a better way, I would be doing it? But I don't know that he said it that way. He might have just told me to stop talking. But I do remember feeling like there was a better way and wanting to solve it for my family. and it was a common drive
Mm.
to be successful in life, so that not only was I trying to solve, for the gifts I'd been given and utilizing them the right way, but also to go back and provide in ways for those that built me. And so I had that feeling when I was younger. I'm curious about your younger self. And then second of all, how much does today's decision making impact the people that are a part of your past, your siblings, your mom, the family in any capacity?
That's huge. I love that question because when I think of my younger self, at first I didn't know there was a better way. That's why I love that my mom opened this light exposure up to me. Basically, her questions like, do you want to follow or lead? Open my mind up, kind of telling me, like, there's a better way. Like, this isn't it.
Yeah.
And I need you to listen to your inside self because it's probably telling you there's a better way, but you're ignoring it. And and I think as humans, we love permission, even if we don't know we do. We love permission. And that gave me permission to listen to my truth. I think I was listening to the world's truth before. And once I got permission to listen to my truth, oh, it was on because now I'm not even thinking of like a better way. I'm like dreaming beyond things that are even imaginable because yourself can dream big dreams. We tend to quiet them down because we start to say it's not possible.
Right.
But when I got that freedom mind, now I became this huge dreamer and I used art honestly as my vessel to dream. Like I got into drama programs where I could be some sort of character, and then
Yeah.
that allowed me to dream outside. And then I start to draw, so then I could draw a vision outside of what I really was living in. And the imagination is so beautiful, but people keep them separate, and I start to combine them because I start to believe that if I can imagine it, then it is so. Like and some people like, oh, I imagine it, oh, it's just a dream of mine, it's something that'll never happen. They kind of separate it. But I say now, like, if I could see that vivid picture, there's no way God would give it to me and I couldn't do it. And so now when I dream and I see these wild imaginations, like starting a jewelry business, like no one from homelessness even knows you could start a business. I sure didn't. But if I could see it, then I'm like, well, if this is in my dream, and then I start to backward engineer, I see the big picture.
And you work your way backwards. You
Then
work
I
your way
work my way
down. Yeah.
backwards to the smallest, I call it a millimeter movement.
Yeah.
When I start creating jewelry, I realized I hand draw every design, right? And then I take it to a manufacturer. I'm like, can you create this, please? And then they would say, okay, how many millimeters is the width of that earring? And I'm like, wait, millimeter? Because there's a drastic change, and this is life. 1 millimeter up creates something different than 1 millimeter down.
Yep.
And a millimeter is the smallest measurement on a ruler, which I start to realize, meaning the smallest movement in your life can drastically impact your future. And so now I live in millimeter movements. I live in what's the smallest thing that I can do to that biggest dream that I just saw in my life. And I take no pressure. I'm a turtle. And then people probably look at my business like, it should be farther than it is. It could be. But I love living in peace and I love living in love. So I won't allow anything to disturb my peace. And so I'd love to encourage anyone listening. If you are a person that needs to take things in millimeter movements, meaning bite-sized movements, you still can see a drastic impact in the change in your life.
Yeah, that's powerful. It's interesting because I see everything at the end. So I'm like you in the sense that I visualize the result that I want. My wife and I just had a conversation about updating our house. Our kids are our first son's at college, our other son's living away at an academy, and so we're I'm walking to the house. I'm like, we need to update everything. and it's been 15 years, and I feel like I'm in an Airbnb that I don't wanna live in.
Yeah.
Like, that's not I've been in Airbnbs now that are cooler than where we live, and there's no reason for that. We can flip this switch, we have the ability, and the way we both think is so differently, which is what makes our marriage great.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is I start going at the end. I'm like, "Okay, so these are the biggest projects we have to do." And then she's like, "Well, we gotta start with the fireplace." And
Yeah.
that's the millimeter movement right there. It's like, "Well,
Exactly.
but I can't start at the fireplace." I'm like, "Well, Adrian, if we start at the fireplace, then we're gonna have to change the carpet. The tiles gotta come out right there. The hardwood, are we doing hardwood? Are we doing carpet? What are we doing?" Like, I'm already curious to the 7 to 10 steps past it.
Yes.
But when you find in business, in partnership, in life, whatever it is, relationships,
Yeah.
when you find the person that can actually be the other side, the other part, the millimeter
Yeah.
to the visionary. You've
Yeah.
got to have both, because
Ooh.
if you don't, we get stranded. My COO is like that. I can say the vision, and what a lot of people do is they will most people that aren't visionaries break down your dream. They immediately say, well, that's a lot of steps. I don't know how you're getting there, because they're starting at the bottom. They're only taking millimeter steps. It's when
Yeah.
you combine the two that you're talking about that you have exponential results.
Yes. Oh, I got chills. Everything you said. Yes, 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 yes. And I love being transparent and transparent. Like, I am in a growth phase of my business where I am praying for that person, because my true self is you, the big picture.
Right.
And I have to force myself to get down to the millimeter movement, but it's not my genius zone. So I am praying to bring that person in, like your COO, who is not the dream killer, who allows us to dream big. And then, like your wife says, okay, now let's go to the fireplace. And then we can dream from the fireplace out. And I do believe that when you are blessed with the magic of those two brains or those two types of energies, oh, the growth that you can have together. And I know there's growth, bigger growth for me when God blesses me with that mindset partner to grow us and make impact and change. But for now, for people who don't have that person, I love to say and stand strong in my light and say, if you don't have that person, you still can move, because I right now don't have it, and I'm forcing myself into be in both places. You may grow slower, but you'll still grow.
Yeah, and you're prioritizing what's most important. I think I'm a firm believer that 1 plus 1 can equal 10x if
Yes.
you have the right one. Now, 1 plus 1 can also equal a negative 10 if you have the wrong one. And that's the energy component. It's really how we show up to the world, who are we connected to, and how that connection amplifies the results we're aiming towards. And so first of all, you're already putting it out in the universe. So
Yeah.
the good thing is the sheer fact that we're having this conversation, you just put it out into the universe, tells us that somebody is listening and interested in the opportunity to work with someone like you and help amplify the messaging. Amplify, because they can't just
Thank
it
you.
can't just be about business. See,
No.
you talked about creativity, and you talked about how you like to bridge the gap and kind of bring them together, that you don't separate the worlds from the creative world to the millimeter movement. There's that whole continuity that goes with it. And I think that that's really important, but finding someone who not only believes in executing the role, but also the vision of what you're trying to accomplish is quite valuable. And it's such a benefit. It's easier to do projects with my COO than it is with my wife. That's true,
Yeah.
but only because I'm used to having some level of final say
Yeah.
in a business, and I don't get that at home. So
Right.
we
No.
we kind of there's a little that's challenging for all of us, because when you're used to being the boss, you're like, well, no, here's the vision. Now make it happen.
No, execute.
It doesn't work like that in your house. It should. You want it to, but it doesn't work like that. but I think putting it in the universe is the way to do it. It's only going to make it easier for you.
Yes, you said some beautiful things. Thank you for bringing that out too. Because it's like, well, how do you go from homeless to accomplishing these things? Um, it is what you said too. If we add in the power of like speaking your dreams out. When I was younger in poverty, the poverty mindset is don't tell anybody your business. Don't tell anybody your secret. Someone will take it away. Someone's going to kill it. That it's a closed mindset
That's
because
scarcity.
we don't have scarcity, right? So you're trying to hold on. And then when I got to see the world, I'm like, oh, that's such the opposite. You are killing the opportunity of blessings to grow this that's inside of you. And so now I believe like whatever comes to your heart and like you know that it's true, you share it out to the world. And I feel that it gives it wings to fly because you are not sharing these dreams to have a direct result. Like I am not sharing because I think someone's going to answer or solve the problem. You share it out because the more it gets out of your body, the more it gets into the world. And when it gets into the world, it connects somewhere and it comes back to you. And the truth is, no matter what people say, we as humans have a heart to help. We're innately, Bob Goff, I was in a great program that he did, and he was talking about like the human mind has this innate ability to hear a need. And if they can help, they will immediately respond to it. If they can't help, it'll be stored somewhere in their brain system that when it comes up somewhere in the world, they're like, oh my God, Leah said, or Sarah said, let me contact her and let her know. So you're literally putting it out to all of these different heart sources that now are putting it out into the world for you. And it has been one of my biggest assets to be confident enough to share the boldest and craziest dreams without a care of the response.
Well, it's because well, first of all, it starts with loving ourselves.
Yep.
See, I think confidence is something that comes with action. So
Yeah.
that's another thing that's really important. I was having a conversation with someone and they were like, it's so nice to talk to you. It was my Uber driver. I was riding to the airport at 4 something in the morning the other day. It was a miserable time. I was so grateful someone picked me up.
Yeah.
And, because you don't know if they're going to show up that early in the morning. And she had such a great demeanor about her. And she was nice and we're talking. And she was talking about her daughter, and both her daughters are in school and she's working hard. And she was talking about loving what she does. And she asked me a question and I described what I was doing. And she said, your confidence is so infectious. Like I get really excited. It's 4 in the morning and we're talking and you're so confident. And I said, yeah, but that comes with a lot of humility.
Yeah.
I'm confident to the people that I lead. But don't get me wrong, I'm humbled all the time by knowing that I can make the wrong decision, or that I don't know it all, or that I'm just working my best, but it comes with the action of taking those steps that we were talking about. And then from there, I see if I need to course correct, if I'm humbled in that moment, if I have to admit I made a mistake,
Yeah.
or and so we had this deep conversation on a 15 to 20-minute ride to the airport at 4:30 in the morning, I think was the exact time. And it was awesome. And you're also talking about something that I talk about a lot, which is impact.
Yeah.
And when you start talking about impact, you're talking about an army of impactful people, right? People that when you start doing stuff for other people, whether you can do it in the moment or you can do it later, you're thinking of others. And
Yeah.
when you're thinking of others, guess who you're not thinking about, folks? We're not thinking about ourselves.
Yeah.
That's the secret recipe. It's that understanding that when we're thinking about ourselves, we get in our own way, where our decision making gets foggy. It
Yeah.
gets driven to the wrong place. Money, bad decisions, bad people, power, whatever it is. But when you're thinking about others, you have that abundant mindset that we talked about where you could shift, but it starts with loving yourself. what you said in the 7th grade is you started to love yourself. That's why you don't care what other people think.
Yeah. And if you start to, this love word is so powerful. It's thrown around so often that it almost gets diluted in the power that love really is. And so everybody I meet, if I connect, I will say I love you. Like it's immediate, right? And some people question, like, how do you love everybody? Like it's a thing because love, my aunt, when I was growing up, I love taking nuggets. I love listening and communicating. That's another key that I'd love to share with people. Like, talk to everybody and listen. Everything's not for you in the conversation. I think of it as like a gold miner, right? Like you're shifting for golds of light, and all the conversation is not the keys for you, but there may be one word that will literally impact your life. And that's what I'm doing in all conversations. So my aunt, when I was really young, I would always tell her, I love you, Aunt Nancy. I love you. Everything. I love you. I love you. And she stopped and she said, but love is an action word, meaning you show love before you say love. The verbalness of love is just a sealing of what you've already shown. And I start to live in this understanding that, oh, there's a lot of action words in this world. And love is one of them. And when you can really stand in love, and if you first talk about yourself, because I feel that if you can love yourself truly, then you can truly love others. Meaning love is compassionate. Love is forgiving. Love is unwavering. Love is warm. Love is tough. It gets back up. Like these are actions that you start to, love is accepting all of the situation. Like when I was younger and I said, oh, I'm going to love myself. That means I love all of me. I love that I've been poverty. I love that I'm an African American woman. I love my hair texture. I love that I have challenged reading. I love that I spell challenging if you get a text message from me. I love that I'm expressive. And some of these things, the world may say opposite, that that's not lovable. But for me, when I own it, now I can walk in any situation and truly feel welcomed because I've welcomed myself. And then when you can welcome yourself, you can welcome your dreams.
Yeah.
And you can believe in your dreams fully because you've decided to believe in yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's all of the things go hand in hand. First of all, I think love radiates through people. I always say that you are the energy you put out into the world. So you're going to get the energy that you put out. What you're talking about is that positive energy. Your head is up,
Yeah.
your shoulders are back,
Yep.
you're smiling,
Yep.
you're telling people that you're open. You're open to communicate. You're open to connect. If you need something, I'm here. Like what that it's a special level of connection that not everybody is open to. And the more these things, these phones get in the way, the more people feel like they're connected and the less connected we actually are. So what you're describing is a radiation of love, and it's the action of showing it to people. And understanding a depth of I think understanding the depth of how someone feels love is another level. So for the who's in our life
Mhm.
that are the most important is, we each of us feel love a different way. Gary Chapman wrote the 5 love languages, and it's a great book that
Love
talks
that.
about, super, super interesting. I can remember listening to it with my wife on CD in the car when we had our second child, and we were like, if this is love, this is a lot of work right now because the 2 kids was crushing us. And we identified that some people feel love through physical touch, some through words of affirmation, some through gifts and quality time, and even acts of service. And when you look at those things, you can show love in all those ways. That's a great way. It doesn't mean that you only have one way to give or one way to receive, but it does mean that your receptors are open to seeing how other people light up. And it's interesting because I'm definitely of physical touch and words of affirmation. Now, they Gary says all men are physical touch, just for the record. So
So
I'm going to go with Gary's point there that I think that's the case. But I definitely love, like, when my sons are around, I'm wrestling with them. You know, when I see their buddies, like I punch them in the arm, or I put them in a headlock, or I play with them. Like, I'm very playful, and I notice as I get older, my boys will be like, "Dad, why do you got to touch everybody?"
That's my
And I'm like, because I'm showing love. I'm actually showing love. That
Mhm.
is, and that, again, being aware of who you are and how you feel loved, and going out and showing it,
Yeah.
giving it, not asking for it,
No.
not saying, touch me,
No.
come over here, do the, no, it's me giving it.
Yeah.
And guess what? People love that. Now, of course, appropriate touch is always important,
Exactly.
not inappropriate touch, but
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I'm saying.
It's
And
welcoming. It's the human connection. I touch people often too because I feel like we're so distant sometimes as people because we're guarded because there are a lot of things that can happen and we've decided to put this guard up, which I get. But if you can connect to the soul and the heart and the skin of a person, you become one. Like your humanness starts to connect, and the levels of how much you've succeeded and how much they've succeeded and how much you don't have and how much it can neutralize when you really start to feel someone at that human level. Love is not a pushover. I always like to say that because when people hear love, I'm like, oh, it's so mushy. And I, no, love is not a pushover. Actually, love stands up for the things that are right and in a loving way.
right.
So when we speak of love, I'm not saying that I go through life so meek and so mild. I go through life humbled and grateful and honored to experience things and to be around people, but I do believe in standing up for yourself in love. And then if you know what love really looks like, I have the bracelet that has love check, peace check, joy check. It's like, how do you always stay in this state? I'm not always in this state. I'm always checking in to these
You
states.
know how to get back to it.
I
If you
get
fall out of it, you know how to get back. You know the road home. That's what you're
absolutely.
saying.
I decide to root. I have a collection called Root, and it's root. I decide these core things, and they always are adding, but this is what I'm going to be because that feels good to me. I'm going to be love. I'm going to be joy. I'm going to be perseverance. I'm going to believe this is what I am. And even if I'm not in the moment, I check in to what it is because these are also action words that we went back to before. And I gave him email. I got an email from a company that I was working with my jewelry. And the lady's email was very harsh and it was not love filled. And my humanness kicked into being human. And I was sending back a very non loving email, truthfully, right? And I'm looking as I'm texting on my phone and I see my rooted bracelet. This ring is the rooted ring. And I see my love check bracelet on as I'm texting. And immediately I stopped and I said, oh, is this what you decide to root in? Like, read the email. Is this love? Is any word in here love? And I start to read, and I'm like, this is not who I am. And I deleted the whole entire email. And I start to write the email, still being very clear on my positioning, but I put it in love forms and I put it in kind and caring words. I even asked how they were, how they felt about the
Right.
situation. No, I sent the email out. I promise you, I didn't even send it before it got back to me a reply. And the lady said, oh, no one ever considers me. No one ever thinks about my thoughts and my feelings. That's what love is. Like, love is being everything that you're supposed to be, but it's how you are in the movement. And you're thinking about the other human on the other side, as well as thinking about yourself. And I promise that is one of the biggest core energy things that I do that keeps moving me from challenge to challenge and to greatness in life.
Yeah, that's awesome. I agree. Sometimes I write an email and I actually have to go back and add the personal side because I go straight to direct. So I write the email and then I go back up to the top. I push a couple of space bars down,
Yeah.
or return to make space, I go up there and I write, "How are you doing? I hope life is good for you. You know, really enjoyed catching up the other day." And then I get to business. But
Yeah.
sometimes it just helps me to get the business part out so I can get to the part I really like.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and, you know, another thing that I think is interesting is, um, you know, we when you talk about love, the other side is when I talk about faith,
Mhm.
God is love.
Mm.
So at the end of the day, that is the ultimate
Mm.
connectivity to me.
Yeah.
And so when I think about these things, it doesn't mean that we're always loving. It doesn't mean we respond all the time in a perfect way. We're very imperfect and
Yes.
we're doing the best we can. But the more aware we become, the better we can respond. And so what you just expressed to everybody was you were mid action, noticed that it didn't represent who you were, and because you're practicing it,
Yeah.
you're not perfect at it, but you're
Yeah.
practicing it, you were able to course correct and make a change and make an impact on someone else's life because you said you do matter.
You do.
You do mean something to me, even if you're an irate customer or a frustrated distributor or whatever it may be, you do matter. And I'm here to help. What can we do together?
And there's
So
human in there. Like human connection is power. I feel like I love what you said about your email. I feel this great passion to do a thing about this digital communication and how it really impacts people because we kind of think that digital communication is this non-human thing, but humans are reading it. And we go straight to business and we go straight to the facts. And if I'm a human, I get to interpret it the way I want to because now it's not coming out of a human mouth. And if you aren't intentional in the way that you're communicating in these digital forms, then you can create these energies that you don't even intend on creating, or you can create a beautiful energy through digital. And so if you ever get an email from me or a text message, I am, because my writing is challenged, I am overloaded with like yellow heart emojis, cartwheels if I'm excited about something, cry face if it was something sad, to like allow you to feel the human. And this is with big corporations. I send them the same because at the end of the day, we're humans having a human experience trying to do something in the world. And I always want to live to allow the receiver to receive that human experience. And then they get to see me as a human. So something, and it becomes a benefit if you're a selfish person, it becomes a benefit for you because now they see you as a human, not just a number. If you're just another number, you get shuffled in the rule books and all of the things that is a no. But if you become a human to someone, there becomes heart, there becomes compassion. People start to strategize for you. They start to see opportunities for you to be. It's just a multi, and then they get to feel valued because now you see them as some other people that they communicate don't.
it's powerful and it's interesting to me how transaction driven the world can become so quickly and how numbing that is.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to know the quickest way to shut me down, the quickest way to shut me down is to go straight to a transaction.
Yeah.
And you know, it's the what you're describing is that's the opposite of a relationship. What you're describing is a relationship. You're building a relationship with every person you come in contact with, and because the relationship is built on our connectivity and not the product, not the bracelet,
Yeah.
not the money.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're doing that, life is so much better. You enjoy being around the other people. And you know, I mean, I have had challenging conversations where we've let someone go. The job is no longer available. And I've done very few of these. I hate them. I absolutely hate, as a relationship person, I hate it. But I have done it where the other person on the phone is thanking me for being honest with them and helping them in the next chapter. And I will, because they know I will make the calls. I will literally make calls to everybody I know in the industry and say, hey, this is what this person's great at. We're not, our company can't utilize this, or this isn't working for us, or whatever it may be. But sometimes the journey just runs out,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And but it doesn't mean I have to stop being a friend or
Yeah.
have a relationship. And some people are very receptive to that. Other people want the relationship at work, and then they want you to be the relationship person, but then when it comes to them, they want it to transaction to be for them. So I want my money, and I want a raise, and I want that, and I want this. And you're like, whoa, I got you. But what are you trying to work towards? What are we working together for? And just building the relationship over the transaction is a culture to me that is worth it for not only every company, but every transaction can be a little bit of a relationship, whether you're buying something in the store. I went shopping this weekend, and this is funny because I don't normally do this, but I went to the outlets, and I went into all the shops, and I had a good time. I went in, and I'm looking at different things, and every place that I bought something, I talked to the people in there. I
Mm.
had a conversation. Last place, I'm holding a bunch of bags. I bought way more than I needed. And I don't normally do this, but I needed to update some things, so I do. And I'm holding all these bags, and I'm buying the last thing, just some utensils for um uh like kitchen utensils. Like,
Yeah.
it's not even that important, but we needed a couple of new ones here. And so I'm grabbing them. The lady and I are having a great conversation, and then the next lady comes over. We've got 3 people, and we're in a full on
Yeah.
great conversation. Like, "Oh, we hope to see you around. Welcome to the area." Like, such a great conversation. I
It-
got in the car, and I was like, "You know what? All I did was go shopping for me, but I connected with so many cool people
yeah.
in a short amount of time." And that's you're open for business.
Yeah.
What you're telling people is you're open to connect, you're open to help them, you're open to be a part of their lives, and they matter. And
Yeah.
because they matter to you, you matter. And that's what you're describing.
Absolutely. And it will change your life. It literally, people are like, well, what are the strategies? I'm not really a business strategy person. We're praying for that person. But the real strategy that has taken me there is seeing people fully, acknowledging the humanness in all situations, loving abundantly, meaning like I love what you said. It's so funny. I take what people say. That's why I love podcasts, because you get to hear people's conversations, and then these little things start to set. And I was like, oh, I've been doing podcasts since a baby, like just hearing adults' conversations and like taking little learning nuggets. And my aunt told me, walk with your back straight. She would always tap the center of my back and would have my shoulders back. And you're walking open. That's what she was teaching me, like to be open. If you're closed in, then people start to receive it. The way you walk in the room in front of people, we are all making, sorry to say, we're judgy. Everybody's a judgy person. We can't say that we're not, right? Because we've learned over time what certain things mean, even though most of our times our judgments are wrong, right? But we're reading people's body language, we're reading their face, and we're making conclusions, no matter if we want to or not. And when you start to walk in this way of like openness and joy and freedom and freeing spirit and peace, people feel that and they want to connect with it. I've traveled around the world with beautiful brands, not because I was talented, truthfully. I believe it was because the energy that they felt around me is, they would say, I just want to be around that.
Right.
We'll figure your talent out later. I'll get you talent if that's what we need you to do. And that's how I learned business. Honestly, that's how I learned I could start a business, being around these beautiful women. Vicky Sai, founder of Tatcha Skincare, and Jamie Kern Lima, founder of It Cosmetics. They were building their brand, and I was styling them and hair and makeup. And I probably wasn't the best artist, but my energy, I stay working in my energy, and that nothing is a bother, and that we don't get frazzled and we don't let the world get angry. And then they said, just come along with me. And I traveled the world with them, and I start to see what building a business was and what was possible, and that you can, as one human being, have a dream, have a tangible vision of something, and then pour a real untangible intention in this tangible product. And when the customer gets it, they feel what your intention is. And that's where I learned all of that from. But it all starts here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's powerful. And you know that energy part, I love that because what you're and this is why I love podcasts too, because every time I have a podcast, it's a chance for me to meet someone new who shares similar beliefs, or if they differ, I can learn from them.
Yes.
And so I've had a couple that were a little more challenging, and I had to tell myself in the middle of them, I'm like, okay, you don't agree with that, but let's keep going and understand it. Let's be curious. Let's try to actually do something that you may not do if you were sitting in your own living room
Mhm.
and you were disagreeing about something in your house. Like how do you respond better? How do you work on this? This is for other people to listen to, and they may not think the way you do. So let's think through all these things. And but the energy that you're talking about is something that I feel like you become infectious when you go into a room. People want to be a part of energy like that. It's a culture. It's a part of who you are. And so often people, they numb that. So if you just think about this, if I look at my phone and I have my head down like this and my phone's in front of my face, I can't see someone else's eyes.
No.
I can't see. A funny story, when I was first in business, this is a funny an I story, and this is what ADD does, folks. I just want you to know. I said I, so now I have a story.
I love it.
Um,
That's me.
I I started in finance, and I had to knock on doors and cold call to build my client base. And I didn't grow up with any money. My family didn't have money. We didn't know anybody really with money. And so it was like I had to start from scratch. So I went out into neighborhoods around where I was putting my office, and I would knock on doors and hand out cards, and I would just introduce myself and say, "Hey, I'm opening an office. I just want to let you know." And people would, I mean, I had people that would like drive by and honk and laugh. I
Wow.
had friends that would joke on me. Like it was challenging in some ways because it was not at the time where people were still, it's not like we were selling Bibles back in the day or encyclopedias where that was the only way to do it.
Yes.
And I went to this one door, and I had just had a horrible day. Like everything was like nothing was going my way. And I knocked on this door, and this lady came to the door. And the first thing I said, she was probably like 70 years old. Okay. And I said, "Wow, you have the most beautiful eyes." And she was like, "Well, that's one way to get my attention." And I remember having this conversation. Her husband comes and she goes, "He complimented my eyes." And I was like, "With all due respect, sir, of course." And so we had this great conversation. They became clients of mine and have been clients for of our company for 22 years or more.
Wow.
And it started with that positive energy. Even when you felt beat down, it
Yes.
was every day I would try to knock on one more door to end my day with positivity. So
That's
I left feeling like tomorrow was going to be more like the end of today. And I wouldn't stop, which was sometimes a bit addicting because it would be super dark and it would get weird because I'm knocking on your door and it's late. And but I was going to not finish until I had something good happen because I needed that good energy. And then I had that good energy begets good energy,
yeah.
and that's what you start taking into your career. So that's what we're sharing, the same vibe on that energy
I
thing. But
love that story so much, and I like taking it in for my soul, like the resilience that you share about like going out and knocking on doors and like putting yourself in these very uncomfortable situations is also how you get to success. Like who's willing, and I'm taking a page out of your book. I'm telling myself this now. Who's willing to do the things that no one really wants to do? That's where success starts to happen. And I could use to knock on some doors, even if it's not physical doors, but like, are you willing to do a cold call? and keep going until you hear something positive, even if it's not like a purchase or order, but just a positive connection. That's a beautiful lesson. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, well, if I had a product, the first thing I'd be doing is I'd be recording a video with my products on, and I'd be sending an intro video to anyone I wanted to get in front of. And it would include their name and it would include a quick message because your energy's so good.
Yeah.
So if you have that energy and you're not putting that on video,
Yeah.
I don't need you to write it. I don't need you to put it into words. God gave you a gift, and
Yeah.
and you've said it may not be spelling something the best way, but if that energy is on a video and it goes out and it's like, "Hey, Scott, I just wanted to say hi and introduce myself. This is my line. I'd love for you to take a look at it. Maybe it's something that we could work together in the future. I'm here to build relationships in this industry, not to have transactions. So when you're ready for a relationship, reach out to me and call, and I'll look forward to building something with you." That is a no-brainer. Like,
Listen to the podcast because I'm going to listen to that over and over again and do it.
that's perfect for you. Like, just understanding your energy and your products, like that is absolutely perfect for you. And I love it. And I would say that's what we don't think about. And that's what we're describing. But even when we know it, it
Yeah.
doesn't mean we're executing upon it. It's like we get in our own box
Yep.
and we're stuck for a minute. We'll get out of it. It might take a little while, but you have to remember what you're great at doing.
Yeah.
And so if you're great at connecting with people, then knocking on doors is actually very humbling because all you're doing is you're guaranteeing a lot of no's.
Mm-hmm.
It's really challenging, but and I'm saying figuratively
Absolutely.
knocking on doors when
Right.
we're sending out emails or
You can
DMing someone.
unsubscribe. That's a no, right? That's a door
Yeah.
shut in your face. Yes.
But I feel like that the good energy that you can't forget, we can't forget that good energy. All we believe in it, we teach it, but
Mhm.
we have to remember that more people need it.
Yes.
And so when we start holding it in and we start getting in our own space in our own way, it's us forgetting that we got to get the word out. There's something every time I'm doing a video, and I do this podcast. I also do some just me podcast where I have a conversation about something that's on my mind or whatever, and it's usually 20 to 30 minutes. Every time I get to the point where I'm like, you know what, I'm nobody, no, maybe somebody doesn't want to hear that. And I start talking myself
Mhm.
out of it. And then I say, you know what, if one person listens to this and it helps them, then I actually did something right. Almost every time that I've done that, someone has texted me, multiple people, text, DM, whatever, and they're like, that was so helpful to me. I needed that in my life. Thank you so much. And I was willing to hold it in and
Yeah.
I was willing to hold it back because I was like, I do podcasts all the time. They'd rather hear the guests,
Mhm.
and you start to question the very thing that you know is good.
That's so good. And thank you for sharing that. And that's for any heart because we can start to forget our piece of our magic, if you will. And the interesting part is I created Valencia Key Jewelry and people are like, why jewelry? Like, where did that come from? Well, I started as a hair and makeup artist and I was styling all these, everyone's great in my head, all these people that just had dreams. And the last thing before they would go and to do these big things alone, because no one could go with them, it would be, what necklace do I put on? What bracelet? It was kind of like this seal of comfort or seal of confidence. And
Almost like the glasses that a kid would wear if they wanted to be invisible on their first day of
exactly,
school.
it's like this physical thing
It's
that you're
their
like,
secret,
okay,
their
I'm good now.
superpower.
It's a super.
I'm good.
Exactly. And my mother didn't live long. She passed in her early to mid 40s and super sad. I don't think she ever really got the opportunity to live, but I feel like she passed her light on through me, and I'm honored to radiate it daily for her and through her. But right before she passed, we had this conversation, and she said, I see you leading your life. I see you choosing your destiny and shining your light. And she said, life is going to get hard. It's what life is. But she gave me these little earrings, and this is where the jewelry came from. And she said, wear your earrings every day because sometimes you're going to feel that you don't have enough light to shine. And maybe it's just touching them or catching them in the mirror. It'll be a reminder that the light's always inside of you. All you have to do is consistently choose it. And that beautiful message resonated with me, where I was hand sketching jewelry therapeutically for me. But then when I start to work with people and see how people was choosing these physical wearable things as an armor for them, and I realized, like, to marry that tangible with that intangible truth, that energy that we're talking about, and putting my energy that I live by in these created pieces. That's how I created Valencia Key. And I found that my middle name, Valencia, is bravery and courage in a Spanish dialect.
Yeah.
We know key is to unlock. And so it is this beautiful symbolic energy that you always have the bravery and courage and light inside of you. All we have to do is consistently, intentionally unlock it. And so I love that message you shared. It's like, that is my mission. Like, people need this. But then I need to do more to get on video, even if you don't buy anything. It's like that energy that you feel from the video will spread my message as well. So thank you.
Well, I even think, yeah, I'm glad it could be of any help at all, because I just think that I think it's an underrated tool that people aren't using in business enough.
Yeah.
I know that if I bought a new product of some sort, and somebody, even if so I'm thinking about, I was talking about the cold calling, right?
Yeah.
Think about the warm sale. Think
Mm,
about someone that's just sold something. If it was, "Hi, I'm Scott Danner, and I just wanted to thank you so much for buying this product. Like,
oh,
this means so much. You know, my mom used to say
yeah.
this," and I share something that my mom said, and then I say, "Jewelry means so much more to me than just, something to wear out. It's really your body's armor when you need it.
Mm,
It's a reminder that you're valuable, that you're worth something." And if I got that, if someone got that, now of course I'm talking about buying like a cold plunge or something or
yeah.
whatever else that I get,
Yeah.
but whatever it is, when someone buys it, if that's another part of your marketing campaign, like another touch, like how do you build your marketing campaign to be so powerful that people can't, they're getting so much of you
Scott,
that they
I
have to have more.
yes. Eeks, I love it. I want to go make a video
I
right
know, I know. Will you call me when you're gonna make it? We're
now.
we're gonna we're definitely gonna keep in touch, because the
Okay.
energy is infectious, and I gotta check out the line. I don't always tell my wife she's got to look at something, but I will do that for you because the energy is so good. So I'm sure she'll be a client for life,
Oh,
knowing her jewelry collection. So
yes.
um, she likes to look good. But I always used to tell my boys
Mm,
when we went out at all, I used to say, look good, feel good, play good, because they were always playing soccer. And
yeah.
so they'd be like, I'm just going to a soccer game. I said, go do your hair,
Yep.
go clean your face up, get
Yeah.
out. When we walk outside, we represent something more than just ourselves. We're representing how we put ourselves out into the world. So when you get on that field, if the first thing that you think about is sloppy,
Yes.
then you might be playing sloppy. So, I think I should change it to look good, feel good, live good. Now
Yeah. Oh,
that's
that's
the
good.
way
I love a
that's
little.
the way to do it. Someone's probably already got that on a poster board somewhere in a book, but it's good. And
That's
that's what you were
true.
describing.
Your external can even impact your internal. Like, a lot of people look at this external thing as like frivolous or not the depth, but it is transformative when you can do something, put something on to shift your mindset and your spirit. And my last story is my grandmother. We were poverty. Someone, her dear friend that she worked for, gifted her home when she passed. So that's the only way my grandmother got a home. But she got it and it was run down. The ceiling was falling in. So I didn't have any money to help her. She passed before I could even have that opportunity to bless her in that way. I get emotional about that. But I'm young and I'm coming to see my grandmother. And every time I saw her, she had no money, on public assistance. And she would have these like pearls that I think her friend gave her, and these necklaces and these earrings, and she looked clean, and jewelry, and she would always look so pretty. And I was like, Grandma, where are you going every time? And she was like, I got ready for Jesus. I got ready for the Lord. Like it wasn't a thing for people. It was a thing for her being. And then she would judge me and say, Leah Valencia, when she meant business, she would put my middle name in. That's who I love Leah Valencia, you need to put some rings on that finger when you move your hands. And it's this thing about your energy state that helped. And I think of that to this day. Like, I'm getting ready for Jesus. I'm like, yes, you don't get ready for others. You get ready for yourself, like you told your sons. Like, you get ready so you can feel ready. And that allows you to literally be ready in life. This mind
It's
is
powerful. It also reminds you that that talent and that gift came from someone other than yourself.
yeah,
And so when you talk about that and you think about getting ready for Jesus, you're actually reminding yourself that you are serving something bigger. You
mhm,
know, you've been given a talent. If you're not using it to the utmost degree, then you're actually sitting on something that could be making a major difference, and you could have been the only one given that talent. I mean, when you think about it, if certain people just hid their talents, I mean, think of all the cars on the road today that were
yeah,
created by people that get us from one point to the other, or the simplicity of curiosity that creates something, and it can be in anything. I really, really, I think about that a lot, and I tell my sons a lot of things like this where I'm like, listen, not everybody's given the gift
yeah,
of whatever it is that you have. And so use it. And when it's done, you'll know how to use the next thing. Like
yeah,
just understand it's gonna be there for you. I mean, I had great hair one time. For those of you listening, I don't have any now. But it's okay. I owned it. I shaved it all off and I learned, and now I actually have to cut my hair and shave my hair more than I did getting traditional haircuts, which is a little bit of a cruel joke, but at the same time, it's also reminding myself that when it starts to grow out and it doesn't look great, I got to clean it up because it's about making myself feel good, looking good, going out in the world and, to use grandma's words, serving Jesus,
that
you
is so
know?
true. And it's a gratitude way. I was just thinking that as you said it. I know as we come to a close, but it's a gratitude mindset. Like, if you're getting ready for Jesus, meaning for God, the creator
Yeah.
that blessed you to have another day, to have another moment, like, do you just slump around and just sludge in, or do you fully walk into whatever you have? And it doesn't have to be something great. Like, do you fully take intention on this gift that you were given for that day? That's a beautiful way. Oh, I love it,
That's
Scott.
good. That's
Thank
good.
you.
That's the energy. That's the energy side. I mean, at the end of the day, with my energy bucket, that's the health bucket. And when you find yourself not feeling good, not looking good, when you get out in at the shower in the morning, you look at yourself and you don't love what you see, then you have two choices. You can either live in that or you can change it. And if we decide to choose to change it, the same choice you made at seventh grade to
Yeah.
change the trajectory of your life to eventually be featured with someone as powerful and amazing as Oprah Winfrey, and your jewelry touching all these people across the world,
Mm.
100 million households. Like, this is amazing, and that starts from choice.
Yes.
So tell everybody how they find you, how they find your jewelry, how the men listening to this buy their jewelry for their partners, their wives. The women listening, find you and pick it up because this is good energy, folks. You got to find it.
Thank you, Scott. And we have men bracelets that say
There
believe.
we go.
Men need to be reminded too. We forget about our men. I'd love for you to connect with me on my website, Valencia, VALENCIAKEY.com. I feel, if anything, I pray when you land, you smile. That's my intention, that when you get to there, something, the lights, the colors, the yellow, brings a warmth in your heart. And then if you're compelled to get something home, I think gifting is one of my biggest honors. When someone thinks enough to gift Valencia Key love and joy, and utilize it, not just as a wearable piece, but utilize it as this energy reminder to transfer into what we've been talking about today. That you can choose your energy source and what you give out in the world, and the end of it is love and kindness.
That's a lot of good energy today, folks. I had a blast. Leah, nice to meet you.
Great.
Great timing. This won't be the last time we talk. We'll keep everybody posted. Have a wonderful afternoon. I'm going to end it here. Sounds good. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you liked it, there's more where this one came from. Click here and enjoy some more.